Do you ever suffer from depression or dark thoughts that seem to come on from nowhere? Do you ever find yourself feeling a wave of anxiety rushing over you without warning? It just may be that the answer lies not within you, but from one of your past lives. Does that sound hard to believe? Well, after listening to my guest, Wendy Rose Williams, you just might change your mind. Wendy is a past life adventure guide who helps people release energy that no longer serves them so that they can lead happier, healthier lives. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Wendy.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm so happy to be here today.
Oh, well, thank you. Wendy, how do we know if we're affected by our past lives?
I believe almost everyone is. If we've got fears or phobias that just don't make sense, or if we've got really neat abilities and just take to something like a duck to water, that can be because of a past life too. So it's not just that energy that we need to release, it's that energy that we want to embrace.
Well, this is a show about dreams, and I'm wondering, do we access our past lives through our dreams?
Absolutely. That's such a common denominator between what we do, Debbie, and it's just people accessing their subconscious, that wisdom of their soul, without necessarily realizing what's going on. So if you have a dream that's just got like a different quality to it, it feels so memorable and intriguing, and you might notice things are not current day. You might notice old-fashioned clothing or music or cars or just scenes or lamp lights on the street, those sorts of things. That can be a past life coming and just kind of bubbling to the surface through your dream so that you can work with that energy.
Hmm. So when you do have a dream like that, and it's calling a past life, uh, is there usually a reason why that past life will come back?
It's a great question. Usually, and this is why it's so helpful to get good at recalling your dreams and just to write a few notes about them, so that you've just got that on an ongoing basis. And then you start to learn how to work with the symbols, or work with someone like you that can really help someone interpret them, because there's just such magic in that of understanding yourself. Just being able to tune into that.
Wendy, when I think about past lives, or sometimes when I hear people talking about past lives, it often seems to me you hear things like, oh, yeah, my past life, I was Henry VIII, or I was Cleopatra, or I was Marilyn Monroe, or some famous person. But that's not really the reality, is it?
Um, that's one of the objections that comes up. It's one of the things that naysayers use to just kind of debunk the entire field of study. And we can have had hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. And certainly many of them are not going to have been recorded in history in any way. And the reason that those famous ones keep coming up is just simply because they've got a really strong energy to them. And it may be kind of like a time date stamp to help the person release similar energy. So it doesn't have to be literal. So you just have to get a bit more nuanced with it. And perhaps you had a lifetime like that, not as Henry VIII, but as a ruler, because a ruler is a common archetype. And my belief is that we do all have various types of lives, servants and rulers and merchants and warriors, and just those various types of archetypes.
But if we were, let's say, a servant in a past life, does that mean that in all our past lives we were servants or that kind of person?
Oh, certainly not. I believe that the soul craves experiences in order to progress, and that we look for a variety of lives. So you'll see a lot of contrast, a lot of opposites. That ruler versus servant, that warrior versus that very peaceful monk. So there's just that wide variety. So we certainly are not typecast. You're not forced in any way to play that one role and get stuck in that one type of role, because it'd be very limiting. We've got free will and we choose.
Well, but do women always come back as women and men, or does it switch around? And
It switches around because we've all got, in every lifetime, we've got aspects of the divine masculine within us and the divine feminine within us. And we do choose different genders, or we may be asexual in a life, we may be gay in a life, we may be, just very well balanced. So anything is possible.
and what about animals? Are humans ever animals in the past
That's such an intriguing question, and that's one of those places where the field of past life regression studies really splits. And some people will say absolutely not, doesn't happen. Others will get into like a lot of religious programming around that. As an example of what the Hindus or Buddhists might believe, and others are just simply more open-minded. I just try and be open minded. And the suggestion that I give to people during their session is to go to the time and place with the most healing and information for their life today. So their past life that they're exploring might be lives, scenes earlier in this lifetime. It might be something on planet, off planet. It might be in another dimension, like a fairy realm, a dragon realm, whatever it might be. Or it might be something in the animal kingdom, and they may find themselves in the body of an animal. It doesn't happen that often, but I absolutely see it, particularly with shaman and animal communicators.
how far back can you go? I mean, you go back to, caveman era.
Oh, absolutely. It's limitless. I found one of those lifetimes myself, and I was just so surprised. I was trying to specifically heal problems with my right foot. I'd had 2 surgeries on it, was having difficulties, and I asked to see all lifetimes that would help me heal my right foot. And one of them was as a caveman, where I was climbing up some rocks. I didn't realize that it just was not steady, and they all shifted and crushed my foot, and I did die from the injuries. So people can go to any time period. It's wherever the energy, because I see past life regression sessions as being architected by that individual having the session, by their higher self, their soul, and by their guides, because it's going to benefit them. So they can go anywhere.
Do families reincarnate with us?
Yes, there is a lot of Journey of Souls. Michael Newton's bestseller talked about that a lot. Dr. Brian Weiss talks about that a fair bit, as does Dolores Cannon, who are the 3 biggest past life regressionists in the US. Others certainly write about it too. But it does make some sense to me that we have both, call it a primary soul group of individuals that we reincarnate with many times, because we're traveling through life together. We're having these experiences, and we learn together well, and we choose different roles. So your mother's not always your mother. You might switch roles, and now you're the daughter, or vice versa. Or your child might be a best friend in another life. They might be a teacher. They might be your lover. It can just be different roles. And we also have adjacent soul groups that we can reincarnate with many times, and in powerful roles together, simply to learn, just mastering those experiences, mastering those human emotions, because that's what so much of it's about.
Yeah. So what do you mean by adjacent soul groups?
An adjacent soul group, if we think of, just picture like a circle, and that you're, there with your primary soul group. Let's say, just for simple numbers, Dr. Newton did a lot of studies on this, 7,000 patients. And it looks like soul groups, if you like that concept, are around 5 to 20 people, souls. And then adjacent soul groups are those other groups that we interact with that are kind of the closest to us. And that total number may end up being around perhaps 1,000 souls when you count in all those adjacent soul groups.
What kind of energy do we get from accessing our past lives?
The energy that tends to bubble up. I mean, unless you're being very specific and very directed of what you're looking for, it tends to be the energy that we most need to release. So it can be things that are causing us pain, and we just can't figure out why we've got physical pain or emotional pain, just something that, is very raw for us in a way. And it's hard to let go of it. It's hard to heal it. It's hard to figure it out and understand it. And we may have had it for years or decades. So those sorts of things definitely come up, as well as inexplicable anxiety, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or depression, feelings of sadness. There also can be anger or even rage that's just triggered. And again, we're like, oh my goodness, where is that coming from? And often it's coming from a feeling being triggered, for instance, of feeling powerless and feeling that powerlessness, or being triggered by authority, as an example, because a lot of people do have issues with authority that they may not, realize that that's coming from a past life, or they were treated very unfairly. Or perhaps they were the person on the other side of it and just didn't know what to do to be an effective or fair or good ruler.
Well, Wendy, how can people find out more about you and your work?
Well, they can find me via my website, which is my full name, wendyrosewilliams.com. And I'm happy to talk with people one-on-one. I offer complimentary 15-minute phone appointments.
We've been speaking with past life adventure guide Wendy Rose Williams.